Hi everybody, Richard from Forsyth Video here, and this is a Peavey 212 MS. I think one of the best 2x12s ever made, in my opinion. Except, these speakers kind of suck, so anytime I get one of these cabs, I replace the speakers. I currently am running two of these with my live rig, mostly one, because one's all I need, it's super loud. Occasionally two. Sorry, there's cats everywhere. However, this one is a marketplace deal gone wrong. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is the back of the 212 MS. In the pictures, this was attached. I think it goes like that. I just ripped it the rest of the way off because I asked the guy, I said, is it termites? He said, no, it's probably just a carpenter bee. And I said, no, I think that's a little worse than that. I honestly think that wherever this was sitting, it got flooded, which could mean a whole bunch of different things. So I think I'm going to just start ripping this out and see what we're working with, and then we'll decide what to do with it. So the gentleman was nice enough. He had this and a Peavey Triumph, and I offered him $200 for the whole stack. And then he actually wanted to deliver because he was moving. He actually came by in a U-Haul. And when I saw this, I said, man, I don't know. And he had a couple Marshall solid states that he threw in. So I said, all right, look, I'll do $200 for all four if you want to do that. And he said, yeah, because I guess he's moving. But yeah, I've never seen damage this bad on a cabinet. Oh yeah, look at that. Get back, coconut. Kind of think I should have got PPE. Maybe I should. Oh. At least the cabinet was made of plywood. Any of them are. I would have rotted a long time ago. Alright, I'll bring you back when I got something to report. So I broke away all the easily breakable wood. So everything but that first 1/8 inch or so is pretty solid. You can kind of see that there are some holes all the way through. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all this mess, vacuum all this out, flip it over. We'll go through the speaker side, the front baffle, and see what the inside looks like, see what we're working with here. Getting these grills out on these things is kind of a nightmare, which is why something like a J-hook or a flathead is required. Oh, this speaker's toast. Look at that. That is just what you love to see. Oh, great. My opinion. Alright, let's see what we're dealing with here. They are a big old magnet though. These are always very heavy. The problem with them being heavy and having these aluminum baskets is they usually crack right here when they get old. I got one from Guitar Center one time. Both speakers, the baskets were completely cracked. Alright. Let's see if I can get some light and get you guys in here. So S2, I wonder if that means Scorpion 2 or Speaker 2. I have no idea. I've never seen that in one of these. So it doesn't look bad, to be honest. Everything seems pretty solid. Whatever was eating its way through didn't eat its way all the way through, thankfully. There's some water damage here. I don't know that I can get the whole back panel of this thing off. That might be the plan, though. If I could take all the Tolex off and get the back panel. Yeah, here's what's cool about these two. The top and bottom are completely separate. You can open the top and it can act as a there's a door on the back, a hatch on the back at the top, and it can act as an open back speaker, and you can combine it with a closed back in the bottom, or you can just run one or the other. It's an awesome cab. Let's test the integrity of this scapion, shall we? Let's see. Nah, right right through. Barely had to touch it. Oh man, this is why it's not good to let these things sit out in the elements, guys. Anyway, I wanted it for the cab. I've got lots of good 12s, so continuing. When working with old musical gear, there's this fun game I like to play that I call There's Always One. There's always one screw or one thing, one stupid, silly little thing that is going to hold you up. And what separates the men from the boys is whether or not you keep going. I don't think it's going to come out. I think it's totally stripped. We'll see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, buoy. So this is that top hatch I was talking about. That can be a pain to get out. Yeah. Really should use a flathead. I have no idea what's holding this panel on. I took out the jack. I'm going to cut all around this and just see what we're working with, because I think the right move is to try to replace this whole section if we can. Alright, so I cut out all the bad wood there. I actually have some solid pine that is pretty much that width, and I've already cut that piece. I'll show you that in a second. And I've cut some slats we're going to glue in to add some more support up top and on the bottom. It's actually routed all the way around, which is cool, so I didn't have to do that. But yeah, I'll show you what I'm going to do with the back. So I have some truck bed liner here we're going to use. This also happens to be 3/4 inch, the right width that we need. Hopefully this bed liner looks okay. Alright, that first coat's going to soak in, and then we're going to layer it, see if we can't get a nice, somewhat textured effect. We shall see. So, 4 coats later, and it's just glossy. I thought this stuff would have some texture. It might texture a little, but if it doesn't, I have some flat black primer I'm just going to throw on it afterwards. Had I realized this stuff wasn't going to texture up like I thought it would, I would have cut this a little smaller and just done Tolex, but it fits so perfectly I didn't want to do that. Alright, let me show you something else. Alright, so right here I just clamped in some supports for the back panel that I'm going to be putting in here, and I think I'm going to throw another long support on the bottom, because the bottom had some rot too I had to kind of pick out. So I'm just putting glue in there to keep that from rattling. And I'm going to put another support across the bottom. And then I think I'm just going to screw this back panel on, so if we need to access the back of the bottom speaker cab, now we can. You know, it's not that big a deal. Trying to keep it from being a crazy, you have to Tolex the whole thing repair. Which eventually, just because I'm me, that's what I'm going to do, probably. And it'll probably be seafoam, because, you know, why not? Okay. While I'm waiting on other pieces to dry, I thought we'd go over the speakers real quick. So this is a 90s era Black Widow 12-inch I happen to have lying around, 8-ohm speaker. And this is an 80s era Black Widow that I had lying around. Both made in USA. They both test good. I'm a little worried about the 80s one. I think the coil might have a little bit of debris in there. They have these giant vents, which are cool, but I think they originally came with like a little piece of foam in there too, and that degrades over time and can screw up the voice coils. That might be part of what's going on. But since I don't have Scorpions, I thought it'd be cool to use these guys. This one actually has the old silver cone on it, and I considered, you hear that? If I push hard, it gets crunchy. I considered painting it, but I'm going to leave it as it is right now. And it just means we're going to have to do some rewiring, because since these are 8 ohm, I don't want a 4 ohm guitar cab. 4 ohm bass cab is fine, but I'd much rather have a 16 ohm guitar cab. So that's what we're going to do. You can see the dust caps are different on these guys. They're shallow baskets, but they're really heavy duty magnets. I'm interested to see how these are going to sound. So the lighting sucks, and I know the angles aren't that great, so I'm sorry about that, but all you really need to know is that this jack is wired up in parallel. So it says right here, top 4 ohm, or top 8 ohm, bottom 8 ohm, or you can just plug in just this one and run it at 4. Running it at 4, you know, amps back in the day were more all about that life. Modern ones like to be 8 or 16 for the most part. 16 is more useful to me because I have 2 more of these cabs that I have currently wired up at 16, so that I can run multiple cabs off one rig, right? So I am going to change this jack from being parallel to being series. If you don't know how to do that, there was a video I put up recently that showed how to run a 412 in series. Maybe I'll throw up some of that if I remember. But I'm just going to do this off camera. It won't take me very long, and then we should be ready to put our new back plate on. It's kind of cool. We're going to have 2 removable back plates on this. So if we just want the bottom chamber open, we can do that. If we want the top open, we can do that. If we want them both open, we can do that. But I like closed cabs, so I probably won't do that. Okay, so here's the new totally not dry yet back panel, which I really should not be handling. Fingerprint. Unfortunately, the only screws I have are massive 2-inch drywall screws, so we're going to do the wrong thing the right way here. Anyway, we wanted to stop that shaking, so should be fine. And I think if I like this cab, I do like the cab. If I like the speakers and stuff, I think what I'll do one day is just Retolex the whole cab like I was talking about, because you could definitely use it anyway, and you never see these in like a fun seafoam color or something, you know. Well, not the prettiest, but the whole cab is not the prettiest, but it is super solid, and that rotted wood is no longer there anymore. The bad speakers are gone. I think all we got left to do really is just test it out. So let's go find an amp, plug her up, and see how she sounds. So one thing I like to do before I test out a cab, especially with a tube amp, is test the resistance, which is why my multimeter's up there. So I tested that on the cab, and it rings about true. So it should be close to 16 ohms. It's probably more like 14. But yeah. I figured we should use a classic Peavey amp to test a classic Peavey cab. This is a 6505 Plus. Who needs a clean channel? So if I were to describe it compared to my usual one of these cabs filled with vintage 30s, it's more spongy, I guess you could say. Not as tight. The high end is definitely more present, which is kind of odd. I think it's all that older one. Because normally the Black Widows that I've tried, mostly from the 90s and 2000s, have all had a darker sound. But this is, it's got a good little amount of chunk. Kind of have to dial it in to get it just right. But it definitely has some high-end fizz. It makes it sound a little bit more like the Blue Voodoo does in general. Like that amp always has a little bit more fizz on top. And I've dialed it back on the amp. This speaker, if you listen real close, hear that little extra rattle? I think there's something in there, probably old foam or something, under the dust cap. So I may try to remove the dust cap and glue a new one on and see if I can get whatever debris is in there out. If that doesn't work, then I'll replace the speaker. No big deal. This came out of an old monitor from like an old 80s venue. I have these giant Peavey monitors out in my shed, and they each have two 12s and a giant tweeter. They're huge. Anyway, that's where that came from. So probably need to replace that, but overall I'm really happy with the repair, guys. There's no vibration in the back of the cabinet, nothing I can hear that's throwing off the sound. So I'm pretty excited. Just a simple repair on my favorite 2x12. If you can find one of these guys, I think you should. Find it, wire it up however you want, because let's be real, 4 ohm in a guitar cab is not really that useful. But yeah, throw some good speakers in it. It's a great freaking cab. Individual isolation between the speakers, the option to have open closed, like it's just an excellent cab. So 212 MS, go out and get one. I've been gone for a while. I figure it's the new year, let's try to get back into this YouTube stuff a little bit. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, man. My channel's tiny. And I will see you guys next time when I have something else interesting to talk about.